Casey Hudson is a man who needs no introduction. He's worked on some of the most prolific game series in the entire history of games. Having executive produced Mass Effect, he's often considered the father of Mass Effect. He was the project director on Knights of the Old Republic, one of the most prolific RPGs ever, and he was essentially the head of BioWare for a while, and he's pretty much the face of BioWare, which is why it came as a shock to many when he decided to leave, and many wondered what that means for the studio. And he's had something of an interesting history. He left back in August of 2014, went to work on Microsoft HoloLens, but then out of the blue, he kind of returned to the studio on April 16th of 2018, shortly before Anthem's launch. Casey Hudson returned to BioWare and helped, I guess, try to smooth out some of the stuff that was happening behind the scenes. The studio, we obviously know the troubled development of both Andromeda and Anthem. And before long, Anthem came out. That was a disaster. January 2019 was when that came out. And then shortly thereafter, Casey Hudson just kind of up and left the studio yet again, which was really interesting. This is a message from Laura Mealy, published on December 3rd, and linked here are statements from Casey, who talked about how arriving at this point has been an opportunity for me to reflect on my future, and 2020 has been a year that forced all of us to reimagine how we think about work and life. For me, it's been the realization that I still have tremendous energy to create, but also that I need to try something different. I'm not sure exactly what this is yet, or what that is yet, but I know that I want to start by rediscovering my creative passion through more personal work. And similarly, Mark Dara departed the studio that same day. Both of them, like, prolific veterans of BioWare, up and left the studio. And I'll be curious to see, what the future holds for BioWare with so many veterans gone. I mean, key writers like Drew Karpashian have left, among many others. And the worry right now is that, sure, the name of BioWare is there, but, is it the same people? Is it the same team? Is it going to be the same quality standards? There are obviously some questions and doubts about that given recent flops and unfortunate releases, but only time will tell. Now, I bring up Casey Hudson today because we are learning what his next endeavor will be, and I find it to be rather interesting. Back in June 29th, 2021, and I know I'm a bit late on this, he tweeted out this: "I've been working with some colleagues on something awesome, and I wish I could tell you all about it. For now, though, I can only say this. Today, we are announcing a new independent video game company built to unleash the creative freedom of developers, bringing innovation and artistry to players through an all-new IP. We are Humanoid Studios. This is the first tiny step in our journey, and we hope you'll come along with us on the adventure." Creative freedom seems to be a big emphasis of this studio, and if you read the mission statement here on the official website of Humanoid Studios, it reads, "Founded by Casey Hudson and talented developers from around the world, we combine excellence in the arts with advanced sciences to deliver the future of interactive entertainment. We believe in hiring great people, empowering them with the best tools and a supportive environment, and providing them the creative freedom to do their best work. We are building something special, and we invite you to join us." And if you've been interested in game development, you can actually apply for a number of positions down here. This is obviously an endeavor that's just getting started, but the emphasis on creative freedom, on giving developers the best environment, that just seems to be very prominent in Casey Hudson's mission statement. And just the way Casey Hudson came back to EA and BioWare, and then he kind of up and left just a couple years later, I don't know. This is purely speculation, but I get the sense that maybe he wasn't exactly satisfied with the way things were running there, due to the fact that, there's no denying that EA has influence within BioWare. There's no denying that there are certain mandates that BioWare has to adhere to. Recall that at one point, Dragon Age was supposed to be a live service, and we all know EA is a huge fan of live service because of the revenue potential, not necessarily because a live service model will enhance a certain type of game like, say, Dragon Age. And it's a level of interference that perhaps doesn't go in line with the creative freedom that developers want to create the best game possible, the type of game that best suits the franchise that they're working on. It feels like with Humanoid Studios, Casey Hudson is just trying to find that creative freedom that BioWare used to have before EA acquired them and started influencing them more and mandating more things on them. And I don't know, I just want to remain optimistic about this endeavor, which seems to aim to almost be like an anti-EA or anti-BioWare with these AAA studios that limit creativity because of companies' pursuits and corporate goals that don't always align with the creativity that the developers and creative directors and whatnot want to focus on. I'm very curious to see who Casey Hudson hires. I'm curious to see if we're going to see a lot of folks from BioWare come to Humanoid Studios to help develop games. But, you know, I really miss that old school BioWare. And if Casey Hudson can somehow catch the spirit of that with Humanoid Studios, I'd be very satisfied with this. This is just a very interesting development and a very interesting next step in Casey Hudson's game development life. And, you know, I do wish him all the best. And this kind of reminds me of what Mike Morhaime did recently. Recall that back in 2018, and Mike Morhaime, for those who don't know, was the former head of Blizzard, one of the most beloved CEOs. You know, everyone just says good things about him and how he cares for the people and the integrity of games above, you know, revenue. And Mike Morhaime back in 2018 announced that he was stepping down as Blizzard president. J. Allen Brack took over. The following year, on January of 2019, Mike Morhaime left Blizzard for good. He even stepped down from the strategic advisory board. And so he was completely out. And then the year after, on September of 2020, Mike Morhaime surprised the gaming world with the announcement that he was founding a brand new independent studio. He tweeted, very excited to team up with some amazing people to start a new adventure, Dreamhaven Studios, with its primary logo being this lighthouse as a symbol of him wanting to make this studio a beacon for what the rest of the games industry should be. Supportive of the developer, supportive of creative freedom, and supportive of putting the integrity of games above just pure monetization. And this is a mission statement that you can see on the website itself, where he talks about how there's a common goal to empower creators, help bring their ideas to life, and create original gaming experiences that foster meaningful connections between players. And this is something that I talked about in previous videos, and it's an endeavor that I fully support. Given Mike Morhaime's positive track record, I'm actually quite optimistic about what this will yield. Very excited indeed. But there seems to be this trend of developers, veteran developers who worked on these big AAA projects and have been working for these big AAA publishers, kind of stepping away from that environment, maybe almost like getting burned out by all of the corporate elements that detract from their ultimate pursuit of creating the best games and empowering creators, and essentially saying, you know what, screw it, we'll do it ourselves. And this feels like Casey Hudson's version of Mike Morhaime's Dreamhaven. It feels like Casey Hudson is trying to capture the essence of sort of that, you know, old school BioWare, at least the environment of we're just here to create and do fun stuff versus we're here to manage a company and manage their expectations and try to meet the corporate goals and the financial guidelines and whatever it is, and adhere to what the CEOs and the executives are trying to achieve to please investors. It feels like a step away from all that, and it's just about pure creation. If that is what Casey Hudson's new endeavor turns out to be, you know, I would be ecstatic. That's the kind of stuff I want to see. Specifically with Mike Morhaime, you know, Jason Schreier reported that a bunch of Blizzard veterans, including former CEO Mike Morhaime, have started a new company free of Activision. Many had left because of Activision's growing influence on Blizzard's culture and process. And I have to wonder, given how quickly Casey Hudson came to EA and BioWare, or returned to EA and BioWare, and then suddenly left again, if it was a similar thing, especially after the disastrous launches of both Andromeda and Anthem. Now, to be fair with Anthem, that was, I think, in large part BioWare's own mishandling. They were given like 6 years and still couldn't output a product and didn't start development proper until a year and a half before the game came out, with pre-production having taken too long due to a lack of leadership and various in-office politics and just poor management as a whole. Not to mention all of the crunch and the way people were overworked and the whole BioWare magic idea that no matter how much they mismanage a project and how much they mishandle a development cycle, things will turn out okay in the end because they're BioWare. That's one thing I hope Casey Hudson doesn't inherit into this new studio. I hope he learned some lessons from managing BioWare and the way all of that culminated in just developers being unhappy with their environment. Beyond Casey Hudson, recall that BioWare veteran Mike Laidlaw, essentially the Dragon Age creator, stepped away from BioWare and joined this independent studio that he established with 3 Ubisoft veterans called Yellow Brick Games, which again goes to highlight that veterans are trying to get out of that corporate environment and kind of get into this more collaborative effort that isn't so corporately driven, that is more creatively driven. And I'm really starting to like this trend. It feels like there's just a new horizon of independent developers who aren't just up-and-comers, but rather veterans who are getting together to really harken back to the good old days of game creation. And to me, that gives optimism for some of the games we'll see down the line. And with Casey Hudson, I hope it is the same case as what Mike Morhaime is trying to pursue. And I hope that the games that he does make alongside, whoever else he's going to hire in this new Humanoid Studios will essentially trump what some of the AAA companies can produce. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a AAA endeavor with a massive budget. Frankly, those AAA endeavors have gotten so big for their own good, and that's why we're seeing broken launches and just a ridiculously long development cycle. Even if it's kind of a more mid-tier project, something like Outer Worlds, I'd be satisfied with that, because at the end of the day, AAA and budget and all these things, that's not what defines a good game. What defines a good game is a strong vision that's followed through and that's kind of bolstered by just solid mechanics and solid, storytelling and whatever elements Casey Hudson intends to implement with the types of games that he wants to produce. And given Casey Hudson's history, I can only surmise that it is very much going to be story-driven games, but who knows what's going to come out from them. But this is just information that I wanted to relay for those curious about what's going on with Casey Hudson and what feels to me like almost the anti-EA and BioWare, similarly to how with Mike Morhaime, it feels like the anti-Blizzard that he's pursuing with Dreamhaven. And we're seeing more and more of this, and I, for one, am all for it. It feels like a way to steer the games industry in sort of the right direction a little bit with these independent veteran creators. I'll be very curious to see what's next, but in the meantime, let me know in the comments below what you think about Casey Hudson creating his own independent studio, and whether you're hopeful for it, whether you're a skeptic about it. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.